Megan. I am going live on Facebook here in a moment.
Got it. If you'll flip me into an attendee as well.
Okay, yeah, I will do that as soon as I get going here.
And if everyone would stay on just for like a couple of minutes after, and that way we can catch up on what our after action items are.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
All right, we're going live.
Yep, it worked.
Great. And it looks like we've got a few attendees that have already joined. Thank you all for being here. We will be starting at the top of the hour.
$5:30, right?
5:30. Yep.
5:30. Oh, that's true. The half the hour. Thank you.
Our last one was at the top of the hour, so we get
That's
it.
true.
Yeah.
And can everybody see my screen now? And it looks like we just had somebody else join, so we might just give another couple minutes, see if a couple more join us before we get going. Excellent. We had another one join. We're at 5:32. Kristen, if you want to go ahead and kick off and just kind of go through some of the housekeeping, and then we'll jump into our presentation.
Sure. Thank you all for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. We had one earlier today at noon with really good attendance. We are recording this presentation for anybody who can't make it, or if you want to rewatch something later on, there you have the opportunity to do so. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there are two different buttons that we'll be using today. One is called Q&A. If you have any question during the presentation and you don't want to forget it, please just type it in whenever you would like. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. The chat button, if you could, say, hey, I'm Kristen, I'm, calling in from Northeast Oklahoma City, or wherever you are. We would like to hear what part of the city or area that you're dialing in from. I think those are all. Oh, we also have a translator available. If anybody needs anything, please put that in the chat and they can help you out. I believe those are all the things I have. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason Fairbrush.
Hey, thanks, Kristen. Well, good evening, everyone. We are very glad that you're here and joining us for our Northwest BRT virtual town hall. I am the administrator and director for Brt, the City of Oklahoma City's public transportation and parking department. Our governing body is actually COTPA, the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. Some of you may be familiar with us and others are not, but I think the important thing to mention is that COTPA has been around since 1966. Providing public transportation and parking services for Oklahoma City and the surrounding area. So again, welcome to our virtual town hall tonight. One of the things I think is important to mention is that tonight's outreach is really a continuation of some previous outreach that we've done related to the project, and we anticipate more public involvement as we move throughout the project and get closer to opening for revenue service. So definitely glad that you're here tonight and expect more updates to come as we get further along in the project. One of the things I want to also acknowledge is we'll have staff and a consultant team here to provide about a 20 to 30 minute presentation. And then following that 20 to 30 minute presentation, we'll have, about the same amount of time for questions. So we're allotting half of our virtual town hall for questions. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's on your mind, and we're going to do our very best to answer your questions fully tonight. So as I wrap up kind of my opening comments, one of the things I thought would be an important takeaway for tonight's town hall, especially if you're new to the project, you're just tuning in and kind of like, what's this BRT all about? I think it's important for anyone within our community or that's interested in the project to know that this has been a project that has been carefully considered, studied in depth, and is certainly something that has been in the works for quite some time. I also think it's an excellent example of really our approach, thanks to the support of our COTPA board, the city council, and the FTA. It's really an example of our approach as an agency to continually work at implementing our transit plans and recommendations that are provided to us through some of our consultant studies. So as an example, this corridor is a perfect example of that. Back in 2005, COTPA with some area partners, we did a fixed guideway study, which was really just kind of a vision of what transit in the region could look like. And this particular corridor was one of those identified in that study that was really just prime for some type of rapid transit mode. Following that study, this corridor was accepted into the Health and Planning Program through the U.S. Department of Transportation. That was in 2014. And then in 2015, we took the study a step further. We did a concept plan working with our partners at OU's Institute for Quality Communities. And then we kind of culminated the project in being awarded a $14 million build grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation. And so here we are, all that work, all that planning to move the project forward. And now we're at a very exciting time in the project. We're able to inform and let our community know what's going on. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Jesse Rush, the Assistant Director of Operations for Embark. He's also the project manager for the BRT. And some of you are probably very familiar with Jesse and all his efforts in launching and then managing the Oklahoma City streetcar here within our community. So Jesse, you want to go ahead and take it from here?
Yeah, appreciate it, Jason. Thank you.
Yep.
And good evening to everyone. Excited to have everyone here. Yeah, so like Jason said, we've been working on this project since 2005, and it's really been a collaborative effort. Since 2005, Embark has been working with all the different city departments to ensure a comprehensive and complete project. Some of those different departments are Public Works, who's been helping manage the engineering of the project and coordination with other city construction projects, like some of our sidewalk projects along Classen and Independence, some trails projects, bike infrastructure projects, and other roadway improvements. Embark has also been working closely with Oklahoma City's planning department, really to ensure that currently planned projects and future projects and initiatives that the planning department's been working on will work cohesively with one another to continue really that idea that Embark has with multi-modality connections using the city sidewalks, pedestrians, and cyclists and trail projects. Being able to easily walk to a bus stop or cycle to a bus stop is super, super important to us. We've also been working closely with the city's traffic engineering department to ensure that improvements along the Northwest BRT corridor not only improve public transit access, but also safety, public transit access and safety, but also improve safety for everyone that uses our roadways. Embark has been working really hard with our community outreach. We continue community outreach throughout the project with the development of our Northwest BRT project stakeholder work group. That work group helps guide the project using public input, and we've had community workshops that were held to seek input on concept plan, and we plan to continue that outreach by holding public meetings such as this throughout the entirety of the project. Kristen Torkelson, she's also on this call, and you'll hear a little bit more from her later, but she'll be reaching out and coordinating with all those along or near the corridor for continued input and to be able to provide information as the project progresses. And then just finally, Embark is super, super excited to be bringing just another form of transportation option to the residents of Oklahoma City. And like Jason said, we look forward to running through this presentation and getting input and questions from the group on the call. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian Comer with HNTB, where he's going to go through a presentation. Mr. Brian.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. So for those that aren't familiar with BRT or asking what is bus rapid transit, bus rapid transit is a high quality bus-based transit system that delivers fast, reliable, and efficient service, and it operates in a rail-like manner. So for example, the Northwest BRT vehicles will be specially branded, and they'll be distinct from the Embark fleet. And they will also provide amenities that will improve the customer service. The BRT will include 7 operating vehicles in the peak with 2 spare vehicles for a total fleet of 9 vehicles. And what makes the service rail-like, and you're going to see this throughout the presentation, is the Northwest BRT will include level boarding platforms that are very similar to the Oklahoma City streetcar. And for those that are aware of use the streetcar service, you'll notice that this significantly improves the boarding and lighting times for transit. And it's also very convenient for folks that need that level boarding for ADA boarding and accessibility as well. The Northwest BRT will be Central Oklahoma's first BRT line and will provide customers with again that faster and frequent service. But more importantly, as Jesse alluded to, it really expands local and regional mobility options. It will improve job access, and it'll also enhance livability along the corridor. So as noted at the beginning of this design effort that we're currently underway really builds on a lot of planning work that has been going on since 2005 in that fixed guideway, that 2030 fixed guideway plan, and it really culminated in that Northwest multimodal concept plan. The concept plan included extensive public outreach, and this was the plan and document that really defined the preliminary routing, the stop locations, the improved pedestrian and bicycle access, as well as the connectivity with the embark routes that intersect the corridor, and also connections to major activity and employment centers along the Northwest corridor. So really our design work moving forward in terms of those station locations and alignment were really defined through this concept plan. The project is funded in part through a US DOT BUILD grant. BUILD stands for Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development. BUILD is a federal $1.5 billion competitive discretionary grant program, and it funds a wide variety of infrastructure projects, including transit. So in terms of the budget, the project budget is approximately $28.8 million, and 50% of that funding comes through that federal BUILD grant. The remainder of the 50% is funded through GeoBond, Better Streets, Safer Cities, and other federal grants. The Northwest BRT system will include technology enhancements, including transit signal priority. You might be familiar with that through the OKC streetcar, as well as real-time arrival displays at each station. So transit signal priority, or TSP, uses technology to reduce dwell times at traffic signals for the transit vehicle. So what it essentially does is it will extend a green light or reduce the red light as a vehicle, the transit vehicle approaches the intersection. And this really improves the operational efficiency of the vehicle. And it's really helped with OKC streetcar, and it's something that we're going to implement on this corridor. The system will also include bus pull-offs to improve system reliability and safety, and queue jumps that will allow the transit vehicle and emergency vehicles to bypass transit traffic at the intersection through a dedicated turn lane. The BRT service will also include improved service frequency. So a BRT bus will arrive every 15 minutes during the peak period at each station. It'll also, as I alluded to, include branded vehicles and level boarding platforms. And the Northwest BRT line is approximately 8 miles one way. It includes 16 station platform pairs, or 32 total stations, and 3 potential park and rides. So one of the defining aspects of the BRT, other than the vehicle, obviously, are the stations. And you'll notice from this rendering that the station looks a lot like the OKC streetcar stations and includes many of the same amenities. For example, each BRT station will include that raised platform that I had talked about for level boarding, but it will also include ADA ramps at each end of the platform. In addition to that, the platform and the amenities on the platform will all be ADA accessible. Each platform will also include an ADA compliant detectable warning strips at the boarding and alighting areas facing the street, as well as those ramps and the approaching sidewalk. It will also include a railing at the back of the station, similar to OKC streetcar. Each platform will include a shelter and seating and a branded pylon. The pylon is very important because it's visible from a significant distance, just like the OKC streetcar, and it really serves as a landmark and wayfinding for pedestrians and cyclists looking for that BRT stop. The pylon will also include a real-time informational display that lets you know when the next bus is arriving, It will also provide additional information for transit customers and potentially advertising. Each station will also include a ticket kiosk where you can purchase your fare prior to boarding the bus, a litter receptacle with a lock, and at least one bike rack. We would really like to include, and we're pushing to include 2 bike racks at each station, and we're going to accommodate that where possible, where we're not constrained. The shelter will also be illuminated, and one thing that I also want to point out on the rendering that was very important to the project team was we wanted to include additional lighting for safety to make sure that the entire platform and approach was also illuminated as well. The Northwest BRT alignment will run mainly along the Northwest Expressway and Classen Boulevard. And this route serves 3 hospitals, several residential neighborhoods, and provides an important connection to Midtown and downtown. Going back to the concept plan, the alignment was really selected because it serves areas of relative high employment and population density. So as shown on this map, the route will come within a half mile of 91,000 jobs, which is 23% of Oklahoma City's employment base. And there are significant employment and activity centers that are all along the corridor, including the connection into downtown. The route also comes within a half mile of more than 40,000 residents, but more importantly, it has the ability to provide park and ride opportunities for the growing Northwest region. So again, as shown in the map, you can see the population densities that are clustered in and around the corridor. So there is a lot of population and the ability to provide connections directly adjacent to the route. But really the park and rides provide the opportunity for people to drive in from that Northwest corridor, park at that park and ride, and then use the BRT to come into downtown to employment or activities. So we're going to transition to the next part of our presentation, which Marcus Geist is going to walk through the alignment in the station location. So I just want to provide a reminder for those that have just joined the meeting to please provide your questions within the chat box, and we will answer those at the end of the presentation. Marcus?
Thanks, Brian, and welcome to anyone that has joined since we have kind of kicked things off here. I think we're up to 15 attendees now, so thank you for giving your time tonight for Understand the BRT. Like Brian said, we'll kind of walk through the stations. There are 32 of them, so we'll go fairly quickly through them. Generally speaking, the route loops starting downtown, kind of in that Broadway and Main area, works its way west and north, kind of up to Classen, up Classen, and then generally down Northwest Expressway and ending at the end of the line at Northwest Expressway and Meridian. So as we go through these, you'll see a variety of sidewalk and signal improvements. Many of the locations that help get the BRT riders back to the nearest intersection. Throughout Classen from 10th to 16th with this project, you'll see bike lane accommodations as well. Riders will now be able to use the bike rack at each of the stations that Brian just talked about earlier, or load their bike on the bus and now have the ability to get from Northwest Oklahoma City to downtown, connect with the streetcar, and in many cases connect with the existing Oklahoma City trail network that was built as part of the MAPS 3 program. So generally speaking, these stations are all located near intersections, and again, we'll provide the pedestrian accommodations along the way. So we'll kick right off here. And again, just so everybody is aware, you'll see that little yellow dot kind of on the right side of the map. As we move along the route, the yellow dot will move with us so you can kind of see, orientate yourself where we're at along the route. The first stop here at Main and Broadway. So we're southbound on Broadway in front of the Bank First building. The station is a standard station and it's located in the existing street parking spaces. From there, we'll go to Robinson and Park. So turn and go west on Robinson. As we are now northbound on Robinson, just north of Park. Again, the station is located in the existing street parking. Again, a standard station with all the full amenities that Brian talked about. We'll continue on now to the transit center. Both the inbound and outbound station are here at the transit center. They will essentially share a platform underneath the existing canopy. All of the amenities that Brian discussed earlier are going to be here. They'll probably be arranged and look a little bit different format just because of leveraging the existing canopy, but they will all be here. So essentially 2 standard stations kind of back to back. As we continue now to Hudson and 8th, this here is right in front of Elemental Coffee. Again, the station is located in the existing street parking. The bus will pull up to the station, make that quick load and unload and carry on down Hudson. So we'll continue now to 10th Street. There's a pair of stations on 10th between Lee and Dewey. Again, both the inbound and outbound station here are located in the street parkway. Again, standard stations. And again, these are right out in front of St. Anthony Hospital. So you have the existing mid-block crossing that they're able to use to safely cross 10th Street here. We'll head over to Classen now and head north to get to 13th. And some interesting things about the station here at 13th and Classen. So the first is kind of on the, it would be the southwest quadrant, which would be the upper left. You'll see the future on-queue development site. And you'll see the kind of the stuff in pink. That's kind of the items that the on-queue development is building as part of their project. And so we're working through coordinating as both of our designs progress, making sure that both of our designs are working together there. You'll see the stations here just north of 13th for southbound. And then this pair station across the street. One thing that is unique here is just like it with the streetcar at 4th and Robinson, as the bike lane approaches the station, it will veer behind the station to prevent the conflict between the bus and the bike having to cross paths and stay in the roadway. Like we had mentioned earlier, here on Classen, the outside lane is actually underutilized from a vehicle standpoint. And so there's 2 other projects, one kind of south of 10th and one north of 16th, that's also turning the outside lane into a shared lane or a bike lane rather. That's a 6-foot bike lane and a 3-foot buffer there from the traveling. So we'll continue here now to Classen and 18th. The inbound station is to be located in the island there just by 17th with a crossing to get pedestrians back to the signal at 18th. And the outbound station there is located just south of 18th, kind of outside the Homeland grocery store there. We'll continue now to Classen and 23rd. So both the inbound and outbound stations here are expected to be high ridership because of the fixed route the traditional bus routes here that cross and intersect. And so the high ridership is lending itself to have 2 shelters. It'll have 2 benches. It'll have 2 ADA staging areas while they wait for the arrival of the bus. Again, you'll see here, that's probably the first intersection that you'll see significant work around the intersection with crosswalks, ADA compliant ramps, the crossing bars, just making sure that we can get folks from the platforms to the nearest intersection safely. So we'll continue now to 30th and Classen. Both of these stations are located on the south side of 30th. The southbound station, as you see there, standard station, and the northbound station, we're still working with the local property owners to understand and finalize that driveway modification of the exact location of this station. Carry on to 36th. Again, standard stations here, they're both on the far side of intersections for outbound and inbound, and both provide connections back to the existing ADA compliant intersection. We'll continue on now to Classen and 42nd. So on the northwest quadrant here is be the kind of up middle behind the red line there is where New View, which assists with visually impaired folks. So we want to make certain that we have a clear and safe place for folks to cross to New View to get to and from our inbound and outbound stations. And we're still working with Public Works as to whether a full signal at 42nd or a mid-block crossing that's shown here would be best to facilitate the crossing to and from this facility. The outbound station location is still pending in this area, but we anticipate one being fairly close in this location. The red line is an retaining wall, so it's one of 2 retaining walls on the project. So we'll head north now on Classen. Using TSP, we will make the left-hand turn so the bus doesn't have to wait at Northwest Expressway in Classen. And we'll head now. What's shown here is just east of Blackwelder. And I apologize, we've turned the orientation on you now. So north is now up on the map on the left there. So what you see here is the bus will actually have a dedicated pull-off area. We recognize at Northwest Expressway, a little higher speed, higher volume of traffic, a place that the bus can safely pull off out of traffic, load and unload, get back up to speed and find us a gap to safely merge in. You'll also see kind of headed off the bottom left of the screen is a sidewalk then that will take you back to the intersection at Blackwelder and Northwest Expressway. The outbound station here now on the next slide is you'll see a very similar. So now you'll see all of the intersection improvements and a similar far-sided stop for the outbound station where the bus can again pull off and pull back on safely. So we'll continue now to Northwest Expressway in Penn. Again, a very similar situation where we have the bus pull off. One thing that's unique about this location is that there is a future through lane to be added here at this location. And so we've tried to position the bus far enough in the appropriate offset that whenever that project happens with Public Works, that we're not having to move that station. So trying to coordinate the advance and future projects with Public Works. Unique with this location also is there's a variety of different park and ride options. And so we're still working through those with local stakeholders. So we'll continue to the inbound station now on the west side of Penn. Very similar scenario here. Again, it's built at a farther offset from the lane, just knowing that there is a future right turn lane that's planned for this location. Again, a standard station and sidewalk improvements that would get you back to the intersection there at Penn and Northwest Expressway. So we'll continue down Northwest Expressway. We'll hang a left and go south on Independence. So now we're just outside of Integris Hospital, both standard stations that connect to existing sidewalk and then connecting to the mid-block crossing for the hospital crossing there. Again, you'll see this is the other location with the red line that has the retaining wall going down the slope there. So we'll continue south to 56th and head over to Portland. Both stations here along 56, both have ADA improvements to the existing intersection. And then both of the stations here will have direct connections or sidewalks that provide connection to that existing trail network here. So then we'll continue up Portland, just south of Northwest Expressway for the inbound station. Again, connecting sidewalk to get you back to the intersection and to the existing multi-use path that's along Northwest Expressway. As we continue, the outbound station here, very similar. You probably saw a trend now. Any of the stations that are on Northwest Expressway have the bus pull off so it can safely get off, stop at the station and get back into traffic safely. As we continue now, we'll make another detour off on 63rd. And now we'll head to 63rd and Meridian. Both stations here connect to the existing trail network. The inbound station is located along 63rd, ties directly to that trail right behind it. The outbound station, it's shown right now on Meridian. We're still currently working with the property owner to position the station either as it's shown on Meridian or rotate it around the corner and show it on and have it on 63rd just prior to the intersection. Either way, both stations here will connect to the existing trail network. And we'll continue up here to our last stop here at Northwest Expressway in Meridian. Being at the end of the line, the terminus, we're expected to have a high ridership here just because it's the beginning and the end of the line. And a significant number of folks starting, to ride here to ride into downtown now that that option is available. We do have ongoing coordination with the development here in this area, so we can accommodate how the bus is going to turn around. This is a potential park and ride location. And then all of the additional station improvements that are going on with the mixed use development here. So again, this will have double shelters, double benches, and double ADA staging areas. With that, I'll turn it back to Brian to talk about the park and ride considerations and our overall schedule.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. So park and ride lots are proposed along the route to attract riders. And as noted earlier, the project team is evaluating 3 potential park and ride locations. And those have yet to be defined and are really formalized because there's ongoing coordination for the final locations with property and business owners. But the park and rides would include dedicated striping and signing and a connection to each of those stations for the park and ride customers. And again, those 3 locations, one of those would definitely be at the end of the line at that Meridian and Northwest Expressway that Marcus had noted. In terms of the schedule, and I think it was also asked in the Q&A, so the project team finished preliminary design in 2020, and final design really began this year in 2021 and will run through early 2022. Groundbreaking and construction will be through June 2022 through June 2023. And we're really estimating that the open for operations, I think that was the question that would be asked, is when would service begin? We're projecting that it would be in late 2023. The timeline between the end of construction and the opening, there would be a testing phase that would really allow Embark to really work out the kinks within the route. And that's a very important component of the project. So we're really looking at in terms of opening sometime in late 2023. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. So I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Hello again. Again, you all are welcome to submit questions using either the Q&A button at the bottom or the chat. If you are a call-in only, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. And we'll do the first one here. Okay, question number 1. What is the estimated fare for rides? Jesse, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so the estimated fare for our rides, so this will largely lay in the hands of the cooperative board. However, we in Embark in 2016 developed a fare analysis where we really took a look at our entire system and compared it to peer cities to see where we were as far as our fare rates. And with that fare analysis that we did, we came out of that with some recommendations to take to the board for a policy on how to implement new services, and anytime there's a fare structure change, how that would be implemented. But we anticipate that the Northwest BRT fare structure would be similar to our regular everyday bus service. You know, we want this service to be as accessible to everyone that wants to ride it and make it as easy as possible. But again, the final decision lays with our board, but we anticipate that it'll be similar to our everyday bus service, which is $1.75 for an adult day pass, or I'm sorry, a single trip, and 75 cents for a single trip reduced fare. One thing to note with our fares is that we currently have the option for token transit, which is basically a mobile app where you can purchase your tickets for streetcar, bus service. We fully anticipate that the Northwest BRT, that would also be an option to be able to purchase tickets for service on the BRT. Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Second question, how is this project funded? Jason, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, glad to. As far as funding goes, we've got a collection of funding sources. And really, I think it's a great example of a project where we're leveraging multiple funding sources and using local funds to maximize our competitiveness for federal grants. So with all that said, the overall project, is about $28 million. 14 million of that is coming from a federal build grant, as mentioned. And then roughly another 14 million, if you will, is really coming from a combination of local funds, no like city general fund money, if you will, but it's more like GO bonds that are designated for transit, including vehicles and bus stop improvements, which we're certainly making improvements to bus stops with this project. Some of the other main funding source is some of the Better Streets, Safer Cities funding that is tied to improving connectivity throughout the city, particularly sidewalks and trails and those kinds of things, all complementing this project. So, and then we have a little bit of capital reserves that COTPA has that we're investing in the project. And we're also leveraging kind of a separate pot of federal funds, if you will, our urbanized area formula grant to fund some of the planning and engineering. So again, I think because we had the multiple funding sources and we had the local commitment, that was really one of the things that set us apart and made us competitive in getting the federal dollars.
Great, thank you. The next question I think will be for both Brian and Jason. It says, how will the Northwest BRT affect the existing Route 5 on Classen?
Well, you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
All
Yes.
right, I'll take a stab at that. Well, first of all, Route 5, for anybody that knows anything about our system, it is like one of our best performing routes. So we see high ridership, as I think Marcus mentioned. We're expecting a lot of activity at 23rd and Classen with transfers between not only Route 23 but Route 5 and then the BRT. So we definitely have to keep Route 5 out there. I mean, it's got to remain. Now, is it going to remain in its current form? We don't know. A couple things we're thinking about is, we may have alternating Route 5s, if you will, where some of the Route 5 buses may run the entire route, right? Because we want to be able to keep that fixed route bus service that so many have become, they've come to depend on. And but then another alternative would be to, basically turn the Route 5 around. Not bring it all the way south into downtown, but basically turn it around where it can make a connection with the bus rapid transit, with the potential of improving frequency on the north side of the route, right? We're basically same amount of buses roughly, but we're not running them the entire length of the route. So there's options there, but I think what we're really going to rely on to help us make our decision is, and again, I go back to consultant studies and recommendations. We are currently in the process, Embark is currently in the process of working with a firm that's helped us in the past, Nelson Nygaard, HNTB is part of that project, to where we're doing a comprehensive operational analysis. And just like with any, transit agency that wants to stay relevant and keep up with the changing community and dynamics, we need to look at our bus system every so often and re-engineer it, retool it, make sure we're providing trips where people want to go. So we expect to pose that question to our consultant that's helping us really with that kind of redesign or re-look at our entire route system. And I think we'll come up with some really good options out of there that we'll be able to present to our board and to the public. Because keep in mind, anytime we make a change to an existing bus route, is part of our due diligence, is part of what we do as an FTA partner to make sure we go to the public and we talk about those changes and get feedback. So I think the opportunity for Route 5 is really only going to be better with the BRT integrated into it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that covers it, Jason.
Okay.
Thank you. And Ben had a kind of a similar question. I just want to make sure that we answered it thoroughly for everybody. It says, how will BRT stations impact current bus stops? For example, the northbound BRT stops at an existing stop for the number 5 at 36th and Classen. Will that stop remain? The southbound BRT stops at Classen and 36th where there's no number 5 stop. Would it then become a number 5 stop ? Jason, do you want to take that again?
Yeah. I can take a crack at it. So yeah, we've talked about that as we've talked about that as a project team, and I think it's really going to vary just case by case. I mean, we're going to maintain Route 5 service. We don't want to, remove existing stops, make people have to walk farther or get rid of a connection that they're already used to making, unless it makes sense. There may be some opportunities where the stops are close enough together that we combine a BRT with a Route 5. We have a few streetcar stops that are actually combined with bus service when we were running the downtown circulator. So answer is it's going to be kind of a case by case basis, but it's certainly not our intent to just, let's say, remove a bunch of stops that are typically serving Route 5 now in favor of BRT stops that are spaced further apart. We can't do that if we're going to protect the integrity of Route 5 and do the BRT. So that's the early thoughts anyway.
And Jason, if I might add, all of our bus stops do have on the downstream side have a small platform that if a traditional fixed route bus, does have a stop there, all of our stops will be compatible with that, with the traditional fixed route.
All right, thank you. Here's a question from Elise on Facebook. She said, love the streetcar, rode it yesterday to Scissors Hill Park, excited about BRT and expanded bike/pedestrian trails. My concern is almost constantly overflowing trash cans along Classen Boulevard, most especially north of Classen Circle. At one stop on the east side of the street under 244, there is one Rubbermaid trash can, always full and always surrounded by trash on the ground. Situated next to Deep Fork, this has become an environmental disaster. Any solutions coming with this expansion, like more frequent trash pickup?
Well, can I jump in on that one instead? Because hey, you know what? I'll own that one, right? I'll own the trash issue because it's a real issue. I know Jesse is our Assistant Director of Operations, will be working to address that. But here's the thing. We've done, in my mind, we've done a pretty decent job of increasing the number of covered sheltered bus stops throughout our system. I mean, the previous fiscal year, we added 100 shelters. Well, that's 100 trash cans. And of course, 100 trash cans that need to be emptied on a regular basis. So we are currently in the process of executing a contract that will allow us to basically use a contracted vendor to help us keep up with that trash collection. We've looked at and have proposed for our next fiscal year budget, basically an additional crew that will help us keep up with not only trash collection, but the cleanliness of the bus stops. And we're going to continue to work with our partner, Tyler Media, who just provides a tremendous amount of support and maintenance of bus shelters and trash collection. It's going to take a group effort. But one thing I think is important to note is that, we put out trash receptacles really at our covered shelter locations. So we have a lot of well-intentioned residents and members of our community that will put out their own trash cans near a bus bench, which is what it sounds like the area you're describing, if you're describing a black Rubbermaid trash can. So it's probably not one that is really on our regular rotation to empty, because it's not one that we put out there. And then we are left with kind of a reactive approach. When somebody complains, we'll go out there and try to take care of it. So all that said, to say that it is at top of mind. We have a budget request pending for the next fiscal year, and we are going to be executing a contract to try to get ahead of that trash collection before then. And Jesse, I'm sorry, I probably went over everything you're going to talk about, but I really felt like, I mean, we'll admit it's when you put roughly 250 new bus shelters out in the system over a short period of time, there's certainly a need to keep up with that.
Thanks, Jason. I'm going to jump over to chat real quick and do a question from here. It says, I don't understand why there are platforms at 36th and Classen. That intersection has dentists, psychiatrists, and law offices around it. There's no retail or healthcare, traditional services sought by Embark riders, nor is there any entertainment for people who might be visiting our city. Do you want to do that, Brian or Marcus? Take that one.
So I was just going to note that the stop locations really came out of the public process as part of that Northwest multimodal concept plan that was identified. The other thing with the obviously with the wider spacing, that it's important that we don't want to go locations, generally stop locations are at the major intersections and are spaced at approximately a half a mile, or they could be near major intersections. So there's also stop locations that we wanted to make sure that were, included at major intersections as well. The other thing to keep in mind with bus rapid transit, because it's a permanent infrastructure, like you see on streetcar projects and other rail projects, is we really see a lot of redevelopment and transition happening around the station areas. So just because the development may have certain characteristics today, that could certainly change. And we're even seeing development up along or up several locations along the corridor where we're seeing a transition to more mixed use and other types of uses. So, I would defer, to the others to talk about potential development opportunities. But I think the hope is that we could get future redevelopment efforts around these station locations, and that the character of the area would transition with BRT in addition to other initiatives that are happening along the corridor.
Great, thank you. Next question. The existing road surface on Classen is prone to large potholes. Will there be resurfacing of Classen between 36th and 50th? Jesse, do you want to take that?
I'll take that. Thank you. Yeah, so our current project scope, it doesn't have any resurfacing projects along the corridor. However, you may have saw it in the rendering of the station where the bus would be stopping. We'll be installing heavy duty concrete. So whenever we go in to install a BRT stop, part of that construction will include removing asphalt or concrete and then improving that section right in front of the BRT stop to that heavy duty concrete. So what that allows to do is, for instance, if their stop is along the expressway where there's asphalt paving, with asphalt paving and the weight of a city bus, a transit bus, whenever the bus comes to a stop, there's oftentimes it will cause ripples in the asphalt, right? And then it just makes it harder for automobiles to travel across. So to circumvent that, this project will be, like I said, be installing that heavy duty concrete at the BRT stops. As far as repaving certain surfaces, there are lots of projects in the works with Better Streets, Safer Cities along the corridor, next to the corridor, adjacent and perpendicular to the corridor. So, lots of great projects going on with Better Streets, Safer Cities for resurfacing projects out there.
Sorry, let me unmute myself there. I think I would have that down. Next question. Speaking of the environment, are there any sustainable or green initiatives with the BRT? Jesse, you want to take that?
You bet. Yeah. So there are. So with our project, our project's going to be purchasing, like was shown in the slide, we'll be purchasing 9 CNG low emission buses. And also with the implementation of our transit signal prioritization, there will be very little idling with our buses. So when the buses are going along the corridor, there'll be little idling when we come up to signalized intersections. And then also with the whole concept of rapid transit, we take away when buses are pulling up to bus stops and waiting or things like that, because with the kiosk on the platforms and with the mobile ticketing, essentially the bus will pull up to a platform, both doors will open, and boarding and alighting will happen, on board and exiting the buses very quickly, right? So much like the streetcar the bus would pull up, both doors are open, and then within 20 seconds, the bus is moving again. All right, so we take away the whole idling aspect of the buses along the alignment. And then also, you know, Embark takes sustainability and green initiatives very seriously. And so we actually have just purchased, with the help of FTA grants, our very first electric bus. It's been in operation for a few weeks now. And, you know, we're always looking to improve. And one of the ways that we're looking to improve is the possibility of purchasing additional electric buses. And then also with just our fleet in general, you know, as technology increases and improves, our vehicles in our fleet, they get more sustainable and greener also. So, you know, we've got some in our fleet that are, you know, anywhere from 9 to 10 years old that we're in the process of replacing right now. And so all in the effort to improve our carbon footprint, right? Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Okay. Next question. This is from Anna. What is the anticipated BRT schedule? You want to take that, Jesse?
Yeah, so assuming they're talking about the overall schedule, so kind of like what was mentioned in the presentation, we just wrapped up our 30% design. We're anticipating receiving our 60% design in the middle of this year, with our 95% design due at the end of the year. We'll be taking our final design to our board for approval to go out to bid in the spring of 2022. And then we'll be going out to bid in the summer of 2022. And then from summer of 2022 until summer of 2023 will be the construction process. So about a year-long process. And then similar to what was mentioned by Brian, so from summer of 2023 until fall of 2023, we'll be going through an extensive process of testing our vehicles out on the alignment, doing simulated service, all in the effort of safety, right? So, you know, we want to make sure that when our buses approach a platform and they pull up, and the whole concept of level boarding, that our buses are able to approach a platform safely, and that they're the idea of, you know, wheelchair access, cycle access, and stroller access, similar to like the streetcars, can easily board the buses. So there'll be about a 3 to 4 month period of testing, and then we'll go into service fall of 2023.
All right, thank you.
And then also just to, you know, in case the question was also regarding our service schedule. So we want to match what we're providing everywhere, right? So with our Oklahoma City streetcar, we are providing service from 6 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Thursday. You know, we're looking to match that service. So with the Northwest BRT, again, decisions like this would go to final decision will lay with our copter board, but we're anticipating that we'll be very similar to that, to our streetcar service, the 6 a.m. to midnight. But again, the final decision would lay with our copter board, and we'll be making that decision, you know, in later this year, possibly early of next year, and we'll be sure to make sure we get that out to the group.
Great, thank you. Next question. Can you please give more detail about the proposed traffic signal at 42nd Street? It sounds like it could be mid-block or at 42nd Street itself. Would it not be better to serve the neighborhoods on each side of Classen to have the traffic signal at 42nd Street to allow vehicle traffic to safely enter Classen?
Can I take that one, Kristen?
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, so we've studied this intersection quite a bit. So there's several items to take into consideration when we're looking at this intersection and this area, really. To the west there on Classen is New View. And so, you know, they serve the visually impaired population. And so we certainly have to take that into account. And we serve that ridership quite often with our current bus service. So we know what is super important to that area. And we want to make sure that we accommodate that. So our current layout, again, this what you've seen on your screen was our 30% design, showed a mid-block crossing. We're currently in the process of working with Public Works to see about the possibilities of adding the pedestrian access and signalization at 42nd Street in Classen. Again, a lot of things to take into consideration there. So, obviously, the visually impaired community, making it easy and intuitive for them to be able to cross the street and be able to connect to other bus routes and inbound, outbound BRT. And then also, obviously, we have to be stewards of public money, right? So the signalization of the intersection at 42nd Street in Classen would be slightly more expensive than the mid-block crossing. But we see the benefits of signalization at 42nd and Classen. And like I said earlier, we are in the process of communicating with Public Works to make sure that that is a possibility. And we anticipate showing an update to that intersection with our 60% drawings.
Great, thank you. Next question. Will there eventually be more routes connecting different parts of the city? Jason, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. Hey, we're always optimistic about growing our transit service, whether it be our fixed route service, streetcar service, potential future BRTs, and then really even giving a nod to the work that the Regional Transportation Authority of Central Oklahoma is doing. So I think what we're going to see is through the comprehensive operational analysis that I had mentioned earlier, we're going to see some recommendations for some route changes and the addition of new routes. If history repeats itself, which I'm inclined to think it will in this case, we'll be able to incrementally make those improvements and hopefully expand our service area or reprogram some of our routes to areas that need service more. But also we have to look to MAPS 4, right? The voters approved the MAPS 4 program, which, is just, in my mind, absolutely fantastic for keeping the momentum of our city going. We all know what past MAPS programs have done. But as part of the MAPS 4 program, there is $87 million allocated to public transit improvements. And those are all really tied to improving really our bus system. So we have a couple of additional bus rapid transit routes that we're going to be looking at through the MAPS 4 program, one to serve Northeast Oklahoma City, one to serve South Oklahoma City. And we've also we also have additional funding in the MAPS 4 program for traffic signal priority throughout our regular fixed route bus network. So even improving the experience for our fixed route service. We have funding for up to 500 additional bus shelters. So I know that's a little outside the question of, are we going to be expanding the routes? But the point is, yes, we do anticipate expanded service, but also a better customer experience through, again, over half of our stops having covered shelters, every one of our stops having security lighting, and then really kind of beginning to transition to a micro transit model as well that you can see throughout the industry being implemented in different ways in different phases.
Thank you. We have a question from Joe. It says, will the park and ride lots have adequate lighting, security, traffic flow? It says kiss and drop with waiting areas for both drivers and benches for riders, etc. It just sounds like she's asking about amenities. Who would like to take that?
Yeah, I can take it, Kristen. Yeah, so our park and ride lots. So we'll talk specifically about the first one up at Northwest Expressway and Meridian. So what we'll be doing there is we'll be using the existing asphalt parking lot, and we'll be adding additional signage and striping for the parking area. We'll also be adding additional lighting that will be from our BRT stop shining into the parking lot. And then, obviously with that stop being a large trip generator, we anticipate that being a larger stop. And so there'll be plenty of room for those to wait with the benches and leaning rail. And then moving along to the parking right up Northwest Expressway in Penn. Again, so we're looking to do improvements with signage and striping and ADA access to those stops. And then our final parking right is one that we're extremely excited about is we're looking at adding the Century Center parking garage that Brt currently operates downtown, has extensive lighting inside, direct access to the BRT stop there, Broadway and Main. Plenty of parking, plenty of areas to wait. So yeah, super excited about our park and ride locations and looking forward to adding that to our system also.
Great, thank you. Last call for questions. If you have any, please put them in the Q&A area at the bottom. If you want to go to the last slide, we can go over that real quick if people want to do a last minute. Thank you. So that ends the presentation piece. Again, if anybody has any other questions, that they think of later, please email me or you can call my cell. My experience with this kind of work, I did all of the construction communication for the streetcar project. So, I was out meeting people along the route, but I'm also happy to give any kind of presentations to neighborhood associations, businesses, any other organizations who would like to learn more. This is all about educating, people who live here, the difference between fixed route and BRT. So I would like to get in front of, as many people as possible. So feel free to reach out anytime. And I believe that's all we have. Thank you again for your time tonight. We really appreciate everybody who attended. So enjoy your evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.